This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Yes! Playoff tickets! Just need to click here and... Wait, what? Fake site? Good thing McAfee threw the red flag. That would have been $400 gone.
McAfee blocks risky sites so you don't pay for seats and other things that don't exist. Plans start at just $39.99 for your first year. That's cheaper than parking on game day. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
The McDonald's Snack Wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch Snack Wrap. Spicy Snack Wrap. You broke the internet for a snack. Snack Wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey, where you been? Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means. That's Andrew Gillis. And this is the last time during the year 2025 that we will be talking about recruiting, because starting next week, we are in full football mode, because at this time next week, Ohio State will know who its first college football playoff opponent is, because this Friday and Saturday is the first round, and Ohio State will play the winner of Texas A&M and Miami in the Cotton Bowl on December 31st. But we've already closed the chapter on Ohio State's 2026 recruiting class, and recruiting never stops. So now we move ahead to the 2027 recruiting class. On Monday, you heard Stefan and I talk about the portal, how Ohio State could be adding players to its 26 roster via that. Well, now we're going to be talking about some kids who won't get here until 2027. But again, recruiting never stops. Ohio State, the number 4 class in the 2027 cycle right now, with 7 commits, headlined by Jameer Brown, the 5-star wide receiver out of Dayton, Ohio, who's the number 6 player, the top wide receiver in that recruiting class. And Gillis and I are going to play a little game where we're going to decide what we think Ohio State needs to get done in the 2027 recruiting class. And we're going to put guys into these groups in terms of the style of player they need at every single position. Ready to go. And those are the 5-star/top 100 recruits that should be in the 2 deep from the get-go. Don't have to start, but you should be in the 2 deep, i.e. guys like Devin Sanchez, i.e. we think Sam Greer might be that type of guy, i.e. what Carnell Tate was as a true freshman. He was in the 2 deep. Developmental. These are guys in the number 200 to 350 players who should be fighting for starting spots by year 3. And then you have the depth guys, either guys who are outside the top 350, types of players we could see Ohio State flip in the fall like we did this past year. I don't know how much we're going to focus on the stars and the top 100 part of this, because there are guys right now who are 5-star recruits who 12 months from now probably won't be a 5-star recruit. And there are guys right now who you've probably never heard of and we've never heard of. And then 12 months from now, they're going to be 5-star recruits, because it's all fluid. But the concept of what we're talking about still remains in terms of the goals of the 2027 recruiting class. You ready to demand things on behalf of the fan base?
Isn't it great that they just finished the 2026 recruiting class and it's like, hey guys, 350 days, and then you got to put together another one of these things. Here we go.
Never stops, man. Unlike an NFL free agency where you can only do it during this small window, you do college football free agency all the time. Let's start with quarterback. Right now, Ohio State already has a quarterback in its 2027 recruiting class, and that's Brady Edmonds, number 141 player and the number 12 quarterback out of Huntington Beach, California. I think he was the first player to commit to Ohio State. If either him or Jameer, one of those two. I don't remember. I'm not always good with. No, it was Jameer.
It was
I
Jameer
literally
by
have
like
it up
10
right
days.
now. Yeah, I literally have it up right now, Steven. Just read the paper in front. So, what does Ohio State need at quarterback in 2027 between those 3 categories? And also, have they already accomplished that goal with Brady Edmonds?
Yeah, I think they have accomplished that goal, because I think you need a development guy. So you're going to have Julian in 26 and then Tavian St. Clair in 27. That's kind of the way that this whole thing is lining up, right? Where Tavian will be a starter for the first time in his 3rd year. Will Tavian stay for 28? Like, is Tavian going to play 12 regular season games and maybe, let's say, 3 playoff games? Let's say they go a long way that year and say, I'm good, I'm ready to go. Or is he going to say, I need another year? is, because I think you're starting to see this now where, people now that, especially now that you can get paid, I think especially at quarterback, people can be a little bit smarter about it. Like that's why I think Dante might come back at Oregon, Dante Moore. Like if Arch Manning were to leave, he's probably a first or second round pick just based off of the attributes and the talent and the idea of him. But he was saying, I don't need to go. Like, why would I need to do that? So you wonder if that's gonna be the case because, if you're Ohio State and Tavian St. Clair has a really, really good 2027 season, you're not going to look at him and say, please leave. Bye. Like, unless you think Brady Edmonds is the next coming of Patrick Mahomes and you want to start that process, or Luke Fahey is the next Bryce Young or whatever, and you're like, hey, we got a better guy behind you. Sorry. So, yeah, I think they have a development kid. I think the 2028 quarterback room is going to be interesting, whether that's fourth year Tavian or whether that's first year of a new guy. So that could be second year Brady Edmonds. That could be third year Luke Fahey at that point. We'll see. But I think that's probably where you're at with that room, and it all depends on Tavian, because Tavian could show up, and I don't think it would stun anybody if he decides, or if he plays like at a level to where he can leave after 1 year. He can have that kind of Dwayne Haskins path where, he sits, he plays, and he's like, I can go to the NFL now. It would also not surprise me if he says, I'm an Ohio kid, I love Ohio State, I'm staying for another year.
And I do think it would probably be in his best interest to get 2 started years under his. I think Ryan Day's probably ideal quarterback development system would be you sit for 2 years and you learn, and then as a redshirt sophomore, you take over as a starting quarterback, and then you're the starter for 2 years, maybe 3, but you're at least the starter for 2 years, and then you go pro. I think that would be the most ideal way that Ryan Day would like this to go. And he's never really had that work to perfection. I mean, you bring in Justin Fields, and he's here for 2 years, and then he leaves. CJ Stroud's here for 3 years, 2 of them as a starter, and he leaves because he turns out to be that good. Dwayne Haskins was in the program for 3 years, but he was only a starter for 1 of those years. Will Howard, he was a fifth-year senior, but only 1 of those years was at Ohio State. He came close with Kyle McCord. McCord sat for 2 years, spent his first year in full development mode. Second year, true backup, takes over as a junior, but unfortunately things went left and he ends up transferring. I think with Tavian St. Clair, you have a chance to have that happen where his freshman year, he's not even part of the conversation. He's the third string quarterback. He played 13 snaps this year. Next year, if the roster attrition that we're expecting goes the way we expect to go, he'll be the true number 2 quarterback. He'll probably play anywhere from 50 to 100 snaps, which is fine. And then as a junior, when Julian Sand is off to the NFL, he'll take over for 2 years, and then we'll start this whole process over. So you're saying developmental. And I think having 5-star quarterbacks as your number 1 and number 2, potentially, it probably helps that process out a little bit. Okay, running back. No running backs in the class yet. Ready to go, developmental or depth?
Yeah, so there's kind of a mix here. And obviously, I think it doesn't take much of a genius to listen to this and go, well, they're probably going to take more than 1 offensive lineman. So which one is? So there's going to be different, categories. Right. It's going to be more of a you need this and this and this and this. At the top of the running back room, I'm going to say Steven's categories were wrong for this position because it's David Gabriel Georges. It's not ready to go. It's David Gabriel Georges. That's their guy. That is their target that they have been after. I wrote this for the site on Monday morning on cleveland.com, so please go check that out. I wrote, what are Ohio State's biggest needs in the 2027 recruiting class? And the number 1 thing I listed was not a position or a specific type. It was David Gabriel Georges. Because this is somebody that when Ohio State's recruiting staff looks at the future, they think he's the best running back in the country. And I don't mean they think he's the best running back in the country in the 2027 class. I think they view him as 26, 27, 28, think he's the best. And I know people in that building have said if he was ready to go over the summer to commit, we would have taken it. We would have taken it at any point. And, David's he's French Canadian, so he's still kind of learning the game, but physically, my God, go watch his highlights. So I think David Gabriel Georges would be an unbelievable addition. And like as crazy as it sounds to talk about, this is going to be third year Bo Jackson, and this is going to be third year Isaiah West, and then what's going on with James Peoples, and Favor Aki will be in his second year. hey, does Legend Bay end up at Ohio State? He'll be in his second year. So, there's got like David Gabriel Georges. I know for a fact people in that room think he could come in and immediately start supplanting people in that room. So, yeah, that's the top of the room. I think, getting him is paramount. Ohio State has put, a lot into trying to get him. We'll see where his recruitment leads him. And then I think after that, I think you probably need a depth guy, maybe more depth than developmental, because I mentioned that, it is a math equation. It is a money equation at this point. You're not going to go get 3 5-stars at running back in a single class. Like the way that college football recruiting is right now, if they got 3 5-stars running backs, the odds that we got on this podcast and said that's actually probably not that good is higher than it might seem, because we were saying, why is your asset management this? Like, because, hey, look at your receiver recruiting was down. Couldn't have spent some of that money on a receiver. Hey, your linebacker recruiting couldn't have shared some of that. So like, that's where we're at with this. So just for context. So I think you need a ready to go guy, aka David Gabriel Georges, and then I think you need a depth guy. I think you need somebody that can kind of come into the room and say, you know what, David's here. I'm going to be in the class with him. That's going to be tough, but Bo and Isaiah third year, Favor maybe Legend second year. Like, who knows? Like, Peoples will be kind of washed out of the program by the time this guy's ready to play. So, I think you need two, and I think you need opposite ends of the spectrum.
Washed out. That's a word choice.
I mean, I don't mean that as like he's washed up. I mean that as like he'll be gone.
Oh, the narrative's already written. Wide receiver. And I think this is an intriguing one because this is going to be whoever the new wide receiver coach's first class.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll have already been given Jameer Brown, who there's no reason to think he won't be a Buckeye regardless. He's still an Ohio kid who's been committed this long. So, I mean, they've already got one guy who I think we would put in the category of like ready to go, 5-star, who is at bare minimum in the 2 deep. And by year 2, he's ready to get on the field for you. So I guess, like, to your point, not all of these are going to be, hey, it's just one description that they need. So, okay, how many other descriptions do they need in this class?
Yeah, so they've got one ready to go guy, Jameer Brown, already. I've made this comparison before, and I want to talk to some more people maybe over the spring and the summer to kind of get a feel for this. But I'm 29 years old, and the only thing I remember about watching Ted Ginn play football was that he was electric. And I'm curious if people get the same vibes from watching Jameer Brown and how fast he is. So, yeah, I'm very interested to see kind of how Jameer develops and whatever. So a 5-star kid who he might not be ready to go as like a receiver every snap, but he's playing. Like he's your kick returner. He's your punt returner. He's your, hey, we're going to put this guy in the game in a 4-receiver set because he's going to be a burner and he's going to go deep. Like that's Jameer, bare minimum. So, yeah, Jameer's ready to go. I think they need another ready to go, and I think they need another ready to go because you're obviously going to lose Jeremiah after 26. He's going to walk out of the program too. Jeremiah is going to go. Ennis will be gone at that point. Carnell will be gone at that point. And like, what have we seen from this receiving core now? Probably need to see a little bit more from Mylan Graham. Quincy Porter, I know, has been hurt. There's Phillip Bell and Bodpen Miller and Des Jones. And like, there's guys that are just unproven. So kind of supplementing them with ready to go guys, I think is important because I think, Chris Henry Jr. is probably ready to go. So just throwing that into the room is going to be important. But then I think it's important from a from a narrative standpoint, I guess, from a bigger picture point of view, because you want a good football player, but you need a ready to go guy just to kind of prove to people we could do this without Hartline, because like allow me to give a hypothetical for the future, Stephen. We get on this podcast and Ohio State signs Jameer Brown, who's he's a top 10 player in the class, number 6, number 1 receiver. Great. Jameer Brown's awesome. Cool. And then they sign 3 receivers, and it's Jameer, and it's number 325 and number 515. People probably are going to be a little uneasy about that without Hartline. Now, Hartline had proven in his time at Ohio State that he could go identify Jackson Smith and Jigba. He can go identify a lot of these guys and develop them into, first round level players. But I think kind of proving, hey, we can continue to do this. We can continue to be this war machine factory of we will land all of these elite receivers anyway, I think is going to be a big deal for Ohio State in the 27th.
Do they have to do that every year? Because
No, but I think this one's important.
Okay. Because there is the element here of you stack so many good receivers, eventually you're going to reach a class where the receivers are just like the room is too full.
Yeah.
And I think 22 for Ohio State was that
was
when they
22.
signed nobody higher than 88. Keon Graves was 88. Caleb Bird, who at one point in that class was the number one receiver in that class, and then he got hurt, so it's whatever. But he was 132. Kojo Antwi was 151. I'm missing somebody. Caleb Brown, actually, he was the highest, 79. I don't like. I think if a receiver in 27, goes, okay, well, Chris Henry Jr. is only a year older than me. Mylan Graham is still there. Quincy Porter will be a junior by the time I get there, and then like Jameer Brown is my age. I don't know. It's not that Ohio State didn't do a good job recruiting me. It's just, there's no room for me at the end at that point. But then also, I think some of this, especially with wide receiver right now, I do think it depends on what Ohio State does at some other spots. If Jameer Brown is the only stud, ready to go guy they have in this class, but the offshoot of that is because they wouldn't got a 5-star offensive lineman or a 5-star linebacker or something like that, it's like, well, how come we didn't get more receivers? Because we used our money somewhere else this cycle because we're good on receiver. And I think that's fine. But I get what you're saying. I think for whatever coaches care about that, I do think it's they go get 2 dudes again. Then it's like, okay, well, this is the thing. So you're saying they just need 2 receivers, though. 2 ready-to-go guys. Okay.
Yeah, I think you need 2 ready-to-go guys. And then I would be pushing for a 4-man class because the room still does have the talent of you might play 1 year at Ohio State and then you go, all right, I'm ready to go. You know, what we have no evidence of this, but I mean, next year, Jeremiah Smith, Mylan Graham, Brandon Ennis, and Mylan Graham cooks. And Mylan Graham is really, really good. Mylan Graham becomes Carnell Tate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Mylan Graham might go. Like Mylan Graham might be an NFL guy. And like, I still think that's in his range of outcomes. I still think that's a possibility for him. So it's like, you got to keep that room up because the talent there is, well, like for as much as we have questions about the depth and everything, the talent is still showing to us that that's a possibility. So I think you need 4. I think you need 2 ready to go guys. I'm okay with taking 2 depth guys at that point because of that
balance.
If you want to take 1 development guy, that's fine, like in a 200 to 350 type of range. But if you end up with 2 ready to go guys, let's say it's Jameer Brown and Monchin Sales, and then you end up with 2 Brock Boyds, I think everybody would love that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this dude, he plays at a great program in Texas, which, by the way, South Lake Carroll had, like, it felt like there were 9 different crazy high school football miracle endings in, like, state championship games or state semis this past weekend. I saw Hail Marys. I saw some kid in Louisiana throw his helmet up in the air when he shouldn't have. And, I saw all this type of stuff. Brock Boyd just played in one of the best games of the weekend. His team got stopped at the 1-yard line going in for the tying score, but he plays for one of the best programs in the country. And he's like 600, 500 something. Like he's very, very low on the list. But if you take a kid like that, like 2 of them, I think you're feeling really, really good. Even if, hey, we got these 2 ready to go guys and then we'll build these depth guys up for year 3. Totally fine. Totally cool. Totally works.
To be frank about it, if you're going to go get 2 ready to go guys and you want 4 guys, that's the only way you're going to get 4 guys if you go get some depth guys, because at that point, it's about roster management. Tight end. I don't know what a ready to go. I guess a ready to go guy is Nate Roberts playing fullback for you. So that's always a possibility. I know you love that so much. I know you love it. I know you love the fullback talk. What do they need at tight end? And how many?
Well, this depends. I think they would want a ready to go guy, and that's Brock Williams. Last I checked, he was going to make a decision in December, but we'll see how that kind of plays out. He's
December 15th as we're recording this, and the 16th.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're halfway done. But this is a kid who, you look at his rankings, he's kind of flirted with 5-star status. He's kind of been on, he's been off, he's been back and forth. Look, man, this kid's really good. I saw him play and I was like, holy crap, this kid can move and this kid is willing as a blocker, which like as a high schooler, I mean, that's what matters to me, because he was a great receiver. I was watching him moss kids all over the field. A great receiver, great route runner, really willing as a blocker. So if you get him, that's totally fine. Like that's great. And frankly, if you get him, you start to look at, this idea of like, man, do Do they need a second tight end? Do they
Mhm.
want a second tight end? So it's an interesting mix. I would probably say you need two, because you start to think about where this room is going to be. Like, there's a lot of like we've talked about it. Kind of, we brought up the possibility of like Max Clare coming back for 26, but Max Clare will not be here. Will Kazmarek will not be here. Nate
Mhm.
Roberts will be third-year Nate Roberts. We'll see what his future holds. Bennett Christian gone. Lonnie Thurman gone. It's funny talking about recruiting, especially at tight end, because like Ohio State fans are so focused on the future, and it's like, hey, think about 2028 for like 2 seconds, right? Like, think about where this room is going to be down the line. So, there's two kids that I look at. D'Angelo White, physical freak. He's like 6'6", 250, out of Villangela St. Joseph up in Cleveland. Same school they got Bo Jackson out of. Jordan Karhoff, he's a teammate of RJ Day at St. Francis de Sales. So, those are two I think those are two depth guys. And if you go get two depth guys in this class, I think you're okay.
Mhm.
They took one depth guy in 26, so we'll see. But I think it depends. I think I would prefer Ohio State take two. I think if you look at kind of where the room is going to be at and what you're going to need, I think you need two, especially after taking one in 26. So one depth guy and then Brock Williams, or two depth guys. I think that's going to be where you head.
I think they should go get the sales guy. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. No, that's not true. I'm definitely just saying it because I'm biased. I've never seen this kid play football before. It's just, listen, more to sales people at Ohio State. More to sales people in college football. It's an elite program over there they're building. I split up tackle and interior. And I didn't do guard and center because, listen, like, I don't know, like guards and centers. Yeah, they move around. It's just like, get them in there and it's like, hey, can you snap or not? Let's start with tackle. What do they need at tackle?
Yeah, I think they need a ready to go and a development guy. I think they have a bigger need at tackle this cycle. Because like I said, especially at offensive line, this is what are we doing in the future? This is a 28 conversation, right? Somebody who's probably going to be a depth guy. 2027. I mean, Carter Lowe's draft eligible at that point, right? Like, that's crazy, but he is. Ian Moore could be gone. Like, he probably won't be, but he could be. Like, I think they need a ready to go top 100 type of kid that you look at and say, hey, he's our fifth tackle from day one. Like, he's somebody who walks into the room and he's right there. So I look at a guy like Mark Matthews, the tackle out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida, number 3 overall prospect in the class. It's like, I think you would like a kid like that. Leighton Von Brandt, he was a former Penn State commit. Like, we'll see if Penn State gets back in the mix with him. I know Notre Dame is on his trail as well. Like, somebody like that, where he's the 65th overall pick. Like, even like I know this doesn't technically fit it of the top 100 recruit, but like Qua Ford, Texas High in Texarkana, Texas, number 118 overall prospect. That type of kid, that's the kid that I would, that I think you need one of them. And then I think you need a development guy. Now, that development guy, I mean, there's a handful of them. Jimmy Callis at Central Catholic in Pittsburgh. I know Ohio State has been, kind of recruiting him for a while. I think he's got family in Columbus, or sister lives here, I think. Like, so there's a lot of options in that mix. Maybe that's Khalil Johnson, the kid out of Moeller. He's a number, I think, 180 overall prospect. He's like a top 200 kid. So I think you need one ready to go guy and one guy where you're saying year 2, year 3, you're in the conversation to start. So I think a tackle, I think you need 2. I think this is a really, really big cycle for Ohio State, just kind of looking at what the room is going to leave and where that room is going to go. They've already got 3 in the class, 3 offensive line commitments. Mason Wilt, he's an interior guy. Tyler Bowen's compared him to Luke Montgomery. Brody McNeil, he's another big guy, 6'5", 285. Kellen Weimer, 6'5", 265. He's like 270 now. The thing that Tyler Bowen loves is versatility, but I don't know if they have like a necessarily dead set, you are a tackle, sir, type of guy in that class. And I think you probably need 2 of them. So I think that's where Ohio State needs to land in 27.
So these 3, Weimer, who's 211, McNeil, who's 235, and Wilt, who's 527, like, those are more developmental or depth guys than ready to go guys. And so interior, I mean, it sounds like from how you're talking, they've already kind of figured out what they needed in the interior and kind of checked that off for this class.
Yeah, like, it wouldn't stun me if like Weimer ends up as like a tackle over or even McNeil. So like they like, again, it is a tricky conversation because like it feels like there's like set roles that like we talked about with like Justin Fry, where it's like, you're a tackle, you're this, you're that.
Yeah.
Like Tyler Bowen's like, I don't know, you're big and you can play football. Come play football for me. And you can move around. Like Kellen Weimer plays left tackle at Liberty Center. Now, the level of competition at Liberty Center is not even, what you're going to see at like a St. Ed's, or a Hoban, but like that Greer saw. But he does play left tackle, and McNeil's plays left tackle. So it's like these guys do have tackle kind of in their past.
Yeah.
But I think minimum you've got 2 guys already that are going to play on the interior because Wilt's one of them. Like Wilt is definitely going to play on the interior. I love what Ohio State is doing on the offensive line. You've already got 3 in the class. And like the big thing for that is you've got 3 right now. Like Wilt's a quote unquote depth guy, right? He's number 527 in the class. You can go kind of big game hunting now. It's December 15th. The calendar hasn't even flipped to 2026 yet. You can kind of go figure out what you need to do. And you get, hey, if you need to take a bigger swing, you can do that. If you need to go flip another in-state kid during late in the process, you could do that. So yeah, I think Ohio State's good on interior guys. I think you probably need one more depth guy just to be sure. Yeah, Ohio State's going to end with 5. And I think their goal is to end with 5. And if you end with like 1 ready to go, 2 or 3 developmental, and then like 1 or 2 depth, I think you're feeling really, really good about this class again, because Tyler Bowen, I think, had a solid class in 26, but I think he and everybody else in the program probably is aware that this is a big cycle for them.
And I'm looking at some of the top tackles in the country because I'm just under the influence at this point of like, okay, this guy's highly rated. What region of the country is he from? Because that's the region of the country he's going to be playing college football. And I think the one that's closest to where Ohio State is a kid at a New Jersey City, New Jersey. He's a number 68 player, number 7 offensive tackle in the country. And his name is Olubobola. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly, but he's from Jersey. And so I'm just looking for guys who are from this area of the country, because Mark Matthews, I get it. He's the best player. He's the second best player in the country. He's a top tackle in the country. He's from St. Thomas Aquinas. So I'm assuming he stays in SEC country. And if Tyler Bowen pulls something off, that would be like, whoa, that would be a heck of a pull-off. But it is that the Mark Matthews description has just not come to Ohio State in my time on this beat at all. Because even when they went and got Nicholas Petit-Frere from Florida, like there was a caveat of he was down there at school at the same time Greg Schiano's kids were down there in school. And so that's part of the reason that relationship formed. Paris Johnson from Cincinnati, Donovan Jackson's from Texas, but he has mad family in Cincinnati and in Cleveland. Sam Greer's from Akron, right? So we've beat that to a dead horse at this point, so we don't have to keep going over that fact. But and Tyler Bowen has already proven with his 2026 cycle he's not going to be caught in a world where it's like either I got Mark Matthews or I didn't get anything at all. But we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about offensive tackles. Yes, you have to go get highly rated guys, but also history tells you where you should be realistic with some of these guys. Okay, so here's what we have offensively: developmental quarterback, a starter, and a depth guy at running back. And by starter, we mean David Gabriel Georges, which they love that guy. And then at wide receiver, 2 ready to goes and 2 depth guys. At tight end, either a ready to go guy and a depth guy, or 2 depth guys. So regardless, you need 2 guys in general. At tackle, a ready to go guy and a developmental guy. And then on the interior, 2 developmental guys. And then if you can add 1 or 2 depth guys along with that, by all means, you can never have too many big people who can move people on the interior. Let's take a break, and then we'll go over to the other side of the ball where Ohio State right now, they do have 2 commitments on defense, and see what else they need to add over the next 12 months.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed-sponsored jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means and Andrew Gillis running through Ohio State's 2027 recruiting class and what they need for a class that currently ranks 4th nationally with 7 commitments in it. Right now, the defensive guys are Eli Johnson, number 114 player, number 10 safety out of Texas, and then Angelo Smith out of South Florida, number 576 player, number 56 safety in the country. He's also the little brother of Jeremiah Smith. Let's start up front. On the edge, how many and what are the descriptions of the edge guys Ohio State needs in 2027?
So you need 2 of them, and you'll have to forgive me. We're recording this podcast at a time where I didn't have a chance to listen to you and Stefan talk about the portal. But I think this is maybe the position that could be impacted the most by the portal. Ohio State, let me give my 2 cents. Ohio State needs to hit the portal for a defensive end. I think you need to, because Caden Curry is going to go. Kenyatta Jackson, we'll see. He technically could return for 26, but we'll see how that plays out. You have CJ Hicks and you don't know. And then afterwards it's like, all right, well, like let's say Kenyatta goes. All right, it's Zion Grady and who, right? It's, Zion Grady and what? So I think they need to hit the portal. So even if they go get a multi-year starter out of the portal, even if they go find somebody who can be that type of player, I think you need a ready to go guy. Like I think this is like a bare minimum. You need a, top 50 type of kid. You need another Kari Wilder type of kid. I know DJ Jacobs out of Georgia. He's the number 1 overall player in the class. It's probably going to be tough to pull him away from the Bulldogs, but you got to pull a kid like that. Anthony Sweeney, good counsel in Maryland. He's another kid where you look at and you say, hey, Ohio State's been good to good counsel, and good counsel's been good to Ohio State. So, does Sweeney end up in the class? He's number 20 overall player. Like Abraham, I believe I'm saying this correct, Abraham Cisse. So like getting him out of Pennsylvania, he's a number 77 overall kid. I think he's going to rise. I was watching him a little bit because he went on a visit to Ohio State, and I was watching him a little bit, and it was like, holy smokes. Like he's 6'5", 215, and you start to kind of wonder, all right, what do we get that to 6'5", 240? Then you're talking. So you need a blue chipper. You need an elite edge rusher, because for 27, all right, cool, you'll have Zion Grady as a 3rd year. Ari Wilder will be a 2nd year. But then, of course, this is barring transfer portal additions. You don't really have a ton behind him. And I think adding even just a 4th, like even if you could just say, get this dude who by the end of the year is playing 15 to 20 snaps for us, I think you're feeling really good about that. So you need a ready to go guy. And then, like I said, barring some kind of transfer portal addition or additions where you kind of land a couple of different guys and you're like, hey, the room is actually pretty cool. And we're actually good for 26 and 27. I still think you need a developmental guy like to go behind it. I think they need to hit defensive end hard. I think you could make a really good case that defensive end and edge rusher is their number 1 priority in the 27 class. So I think you need another guy with upside. Like I think you need to go get somebody. I know they like Jace Brewer. He's out of Indianapolis. He's number 280 overall prospect. He's a 4-star kid. Like, I think you need to go get a dude who, like a Kari Wilder, who Brian Day said he'll be a day 1 contributor. Now, that doesn't mean day 1 starter. That doesn't mean day 1 impact player. That means can grab a few snaps for you. And I think you need somebody who can say by year 2, he's a contributor, and by year 3, he's a starter. Because this room, there's going to be like in a 2-year span, there could be a whole hell of a lot of turnover.
So you need a ready to go guy. A developmental. Okay. This is going to be fun defensively. Okay. Defensive tackle. What do you need?
Yeah, this is interesting because Ohio State just brought in a handful of defensive tackles that kind of all fit that development or depth role. So this was one that I struggled with because you look at, the classes that Ohio State has brought in the past, there hasn't really been like a blue chip top 100, top 50. We got this defensive tackle and he's elite, right? Like Tyleik Williams was not like the number 15 overall prospect in the class, right? Like Ty Hamilton was, I think he started as a defensive end, if memory serves. Mike Hall was not.
He was those two were always defensive tackles. That's why some of the classifications they had for guys, like he was always recruited here to be a nose.
But yeah, like some of those things I think are just interesting. So I have 2 development. I think you need a 4-man class, probably 5. So whether that, if you want to say we'll take a development guy here or whatever, there's an answer that I'm going to talk about in about 3 minutes that maybe changes some of this, but I'm going to say 2 defensive tackles right now. And I think they need to be both kind of in that like 200 to 300 range where it's like, you know what, like day one, they're not going to be ready to play. You just took a handful of guys in 26. Like at some point, dudes got to play. Like at some point, dudes have just got to play better, or just play in general, right? Like at some point, it is like with a Jason Moore, you're either going to do it or you're not. Like Will Smith Jr., I think going into 27, he can be a 5th-year guy. He's got to do it. Okay, Eric Mensah will be, a 3rd or 4th-year guy at that point. Jarquez Carter, Trajan Odom, Maxwell Roy. Like, these are guys where it's like, you're going to do it or you're not. So some of these guys are going to have to play. So I think you need 2 development guys who, again, maybe not you're asking for a ton of snaps, but, certainly by year 2, you're asking them to play.
And I think that's okay on the defensive line because, like, especially on the interior, because there's a physical development those guys have to go under, and so I'm all good with that. Linebacker, ready to go, development or depth?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, another one, because like this whole defense is fascinating just because of the options. I think with the offense, it was very much like, you don't want to say cookie cutter, but like the closest we got was being like Tyler Bowen likes big guys, so he's just going to move some people around. With defense, it's like, it's really interesting. So I think they need 2 development guys. Ohio State has had a remarkable 2-year run in terms of linebacker recruiting. In 25, you bring in Pettijohn, Alford, and Lee. I think that's really good. I think we are all probably looking at Riley Pettijohn as somebody who's going to start next year, or at least be a significant contributor at the bare minimum. So I think you feel good about him. I mean, obviously the linebacker recruiting is going to turn over. Would not be surprised if they take a veteran in the portal, just because that is a lot of inexperience at linebacker. It's a lot of talent, but it is a lot of inexperience at linebacker, because you start to kind of map out what the starting unit could be. It's like, okay, well, Peyton Pierce and Riley Pettijohn could be really good in 26, but what's behind them? All right, TJ Alford is a 2nd-year guy, maybe Garrett Stover, Eli Lee, like you start to map that out and then say, okay, well, now take that a year in advance. So I think you need 2 developmental guys that are kind of like ball linebackers. I know they like Quentin Cypher, kid out of North Carolina, is a top 150 kid. I think you probably need another one of those guys, another 150, 200 type of kid that you can go after. So I think you need 2 at traditional. And then, again, I'm going to break your rules. It's not so much as a linebacker. I'm going to call this the Reese Rembert role, where you're not necessarily looking at a linebacker that says, okay, let's play him as the Mike. Let's play him as the Will. Let's play him, as a guy who can play off ball. I think you want somebody who can get after the quarterback and somebody who can get after the passer, because we have seen Arvell Reese do a lot. And I have made this point on this podcast a lot this year. I refuse to call Braxton Rembert Arvell Reese, because Arvell Reese might be a top 5 pick, and like expecting every Ohio State player that walks through the door to be a top 5 pick is wrong, because 1, it's not going to happen, and 2, there's only so many top 5 picks every single year. So I do think, though, there is like room on this defense for a versatile piece. This is the Legend Bay of the offense, if you will, where, you have a guy who's like, hey, he's a running back, he's a receiver, he can do kind of both, he's going to be a special teams guy, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you took a Braxton Rembert kid who's 6'5", 200 pounds in the 26 cycle, and he's I think he ended up maybe like under the quote unquote development category that we have, where he's like, he might have been in the top 350 by the time it closed. They still moved the rankings around afterwards, but he's more of a depth guy than anything else. He's more of a, like, let's see where we're at in year 2 and 3 than year 1. He's not somebody that you're going to ask for contributions from in year 1. It's certainly going to be a redshirt for him for a year for him, I would say. But I think you need another guy like that. Like, I think you need another, like, this is a hot button recruitment from a year ago or whenever that was, Justin Hill. Yeah, I think you need another one of those guys where it's like, hey, he can do a lot for you, and he'll play 25, 30 snaps every single game. And depending on the opponent, he could play up to 40. Like, if you play a team that's running and gunning, like, and by running and gunning, I mean throwing it. Like, if you play a team that's throwing it all over the yard, yeah, you put him on the field and you're kind of running like a 3-3-5 almost, where it's like he's one of your backers, but he's also dropping into coverage. Like, you need that guy. So it's kind of a cheating answer because it's like Braxton Rembert was recruited to Ohio State as a linebacker, but he's not really going to play as like an off-ball linebacker. He's going to play more like a defensive end, but he's going to be in the linebacker rooms. I don't know. I think you need 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and I think you probably want to end up with a Braxton Rembert type, so it's like he can kind of do both and he can give you some versatility there.
Yeah, I think Ohio State has shown this year that they're much more open to the odd fronts that we've seen a lot of other teams adopted. I don't know if they'll ever get to a point where they're running a 3-4 full time, but especially in third and long situations, I think you'll see a lot more of what we saw this year, where there's 1 defensive tackle on the field, 2 defensive ends, and then kind of that hybrid. A jack, as some defensive coordinators might call it. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but the jack is what some people might call it. While others just call it an outside linebacker. Corner. I think this is an interesting cycle for the cornerbacks. What do they need?
Yeah, I think this one is actually maybe the easiest one that I did. I think they need a ready-to-go guy. I think they need a development guy, and I think they need a depth guy. I think you need 3. Okay. I think you need a elite kind of game-changing type of player. Jordan Thomas and Jay Timmons are great, and I think Ohio State really likes them. But I think you need to go get a Raylon Henry, another kid out of the St. Francis Academy, who Ohio State just kind of broke the mold there. Aaron Washington, kid out of Mater Dei. Danny Lang, another kid out of Mater Dei. We're recording this podcast about 2 hours before Xavier Hassan, kid out of Cardinal Gibbons in North Carolina, is going to commit. He's number 38 overall prospect in the 247 composite. Seems as if it's Notre Dame. Seems as if Notre Dame's going to win another recruitment in terms of defensive backs. But like, that's the type of kid that you need. You need a kid like that who it's like, hey, if we ask you to play a Devin Sanchez role year 1, you can do it. Now, maybe he doesn't come in with the fanfare of Jalen Ramsey. Maybe he doesn't come in with the fanfare, that, hey, this is the next Jeremiah Smith. This is the next whatever. I think that's okay if you don't have that, because I think we all think Devin Sanchez is going to be really, really good long term. But if you need a kid, in my opinion, that can play in a dime role, where if you put 4 corners on the field, you're not shaking in your boots when he runs out there. So you need a ready-to-go guy. I think you need a development guy right behind him. Again, Thomas and Timmons, I think you really like. If you pair that in 27 with a ready-to-go guy, it's like, all right, maybe that's your 3. Maybe you have a holdover. I would not be surprised to see them take from the portal this year, by the way, just if they need another veteran guy. And then I think you need a depth guy. You had 2 cycles in a row where you had 2 corners. You bring in Woods and Sanchez in 25. You bring in Thomas and Timmons in 26. In 27, I think you want to have a ready to go, a development and a depth guy, so you can kind of restock not just the talent of that room, but the depth of that room as well. So that one was actually pretty easy when I mapped it out. I think you need 3 no matter what, and I think if you kind of fill those archetypes, I think you're feeling pretty good.
And then lastly, safety. Coming off a pretty quality class for Matt Guerrieri. What does he need to do to follow that up in 2027?
Yeah, this is one where I think you looked at the room and you went, you know what? There's actually a lot there. Jalen McClain will be entering his 3rd year next year in 26, so we'll see if he even comes back for 27. But Fahim Delane will be here. Cody Haddad will be here. Louis Roker will be here. At least, and as I say this, these guys are scheduled to be here. Obviously, the portals, whatever. Deshaun Stewart. You look at the 26 class, and it's like at safety. I mean, they love Blaine Bradford. They love Blaine Bradford. Simeon Caldwell, you really like. He's kind of a different type of player. Caden Gebhart, Kamari Bing. So I have 3. You need 1 development guy and 2 depth guys. I think, not to say an off cycle, but I think if you were to say, we need money to pay a corner, I think it's okay to kind of pull from that and say, safety, this is a year where we can take a depth guy, right? You've already got, you've already got, where are my notes? Eli Johnson, the 4-star safety out of Texas. So it's like, you kind of might be good there. Angelo Smith, Jeremiah's little brother, is a defensive back. I don't, quite have a feel where he's going to play yet. He is a little bit undersized, so maybe that's
probably nickel.
I was going to say maybe nickel. He's listed as a safety, but I think he could end up in that role. But I think this is going to be another one of those positions where, like, maybe you go into the fall and you only have one commitment, and you end up with 3. That would not stun me. So I think Ohio State, by virtue of what the room is, by virtue of kind of needs that they have elsewhere, like defensive end, I mentioned obviously a massive need. I think you need corner. I think you need a high-level corner in this class as well. That is obviously of utmost importance. And now that you've got Eli Johnson, again, who's another big guy, 6'3", 200 pounds, would not stun me if it's just, let's take him and let's take 2 other guys that you feel good about kind of building out the class. And, we'll take 6 defensive backs and, we'll kind of see how it all plays out.
Angelo Smith can hit too. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. But you're right. They've built up really good depth at a lot of these different positions. And obviously, when we're saying ready to go at some of these spots, it's not because of alarm. It's just because the guys who have fit those descriptions are going to be cycling out of the program very soon here. So, okay, this is a quality class to put together. You got some high-end guys, obviously at wide receiver, maybe tight end, maybe tackle, defensive end, corner. So the positions that typically go in the first round of the NFL draft, and tight end. And then you've got safety, where it's a lot of depth. And I do think that part of the reason you're saying that is because they've already kind of established some things here with Eli Johnson and Angelo Smith, right? You've already kind of gotten underway with some of these different things. But it's a good balance of, here are some positions where they need guys where by 2028, they need to be competing for starting spots. Yeah. You have some other spots where it's you're building depth. And again, you're trying to fill a roster that can go as high as 105 scholarship guys. You can be a little bit more interesting with some of these roles.
If we went back in time and we went to 2010, 2015 maybe even, and we said, hello, sir, I'm from the future. You can't ask me any other questions about what happens in the future. No winning lottery numbers, no winning anything.
Yeah.
Listen to this, our podcast, you college football fan, sir or madam. Would they think we're insane? I'm curious. Like, my question is basically, could we do this podcast 10 years ago and not get laughed out of the room where it's, oh, you need a depth guy, you need a development guy? Or has this changed so much where people would just say they should try to take every top 100 recruit they can 10 years ago?
I mean, people might say that now. I think that because the financial aspect has come into this, but also just logical roster building, that has become more of a focal point than stars, right? Because for a long time, college football was like, get as much talent as you humanly can, develop it, because you were living in a world where the top 1% of college football had all the talent. And that's not true anymore. Jared Curtis is a Vanderbilt Commodore, so it's spread out a little bit more. Dylan Raiola went to Nebraska, and I know he's in the transfer portal now, and DJ Lagway went to Florida, and I know they're in the transfer portal now, but that's where they went coming out of high school. So when that's true, you have to build a team. You have to build a roster, and you can't pay a five-star recruit money and then have that guy sitting on the bench because there's another guy there's only so much money to go around. And so I do think for the first time really ever in the recruiting space, we're not just going, here's the 5-star, Ohio State should land this 5-star, and if they don't get this 5-star, failure of a recruiting class. Now we are talking about roster construction. And the reason why we structured it this way is, okay, they went and got a development. Let's just say you're correct. They go get they have a developmental quarterback in 2027. They probably need a ready-to-go quarterback in 2028. And they probably need a depth quarterback in 2029. And the cycle continues, right? Like everybody's running the same race, but they can't be running it at the same pace, or you're not going to have a team to field every single year. You need guys on separate. The destination is the same. They all want to get to the NFL. They all want to be starters. But how you get there can look vastly different, right? JJ and Carnell Tate are both going to be first-round draft picks. Carnell had to sit for a year, and then he had to spend a year where he was kind of a secondary guy, and now he's a frontline guy, and he's going to be a first-round draft pick. JJ's going to be a frontline guy from beginning to end, right? But does it change? I mean, they're both getting contracts where a team can pick up their fifth option if they want to in 5 years after they get drafted. So it's I think that the idea of roster construction is more interesting in 2025 than it has ever been. And if that means in 2010 people look at us like we're crazy, maybe. Or maybe they go, oh, so it's like the NFL. Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, you just paid all this money for Aaron Donald. You probably can't go do the same thing for Fletcher Cox because you still need to go get Elaine Johnson and on down the list. So I think it makes for a more interesting conversation rather than just yelling at a microphone because a 5-star 17-year-old decided to go somewhere else. And so I like these types of conversations. So that's it. That's the class they need to build. And at the end of the day, Ohio State's going to have a top 10 recruiting class, regardless of how you spin it. Because if they hit all these goals, quite frankly, they might have a top 5 recruiting class because you've got 5 stars who you're expecting to play immediately. You've got some guys in the 200s where you're like, okay, it might take you a couple of years, but you'll get there. And then you got some depth guys where, okay, maybe they flip late and maybe you don't expect much from them, but then they turn into Chris Olave. Right? Like Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson were 2 very different recruits coming out of high school, and yet they went one pick after another with each other. So that's kind of the goal here is build a roster filled with a bunch of different types of guys on different paths, and then try to go win a national championship with them. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. That's the last time we're going to talk recruiting for a while because it's all ball talk. Fun week of ball talk coming up. We're going to be predicting the college football playoff on the live show. We're actually going to do 2 live shows this week. It's going to be fun. We're going to be predicting the college football playoff on one of those live shows and on the other one on a survey that's already going around to our texter, 614-350-3315. We're going to be ranking the 12 coaches in the college football playoff. And I think that's going to make for a very intriguing discussion. We go live. We're going to be going live Tuesday at 1 and I think Thursday at 1, if I have that correct. I might have that wrong, but you'll get the notification. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's cleveland.com/OSU. And again, get the text 614-350-3315. As things happen, portal season is coming upon us. Recruiting never stops. And college football playoff games are on and popping. We got a lot of stuff to text about. And it's 2 weeks for free and then $3.99 after that. For Andrew Gillis, I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. Mm-hmm. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.